Oh my gosh, it looks so good. All right, you guys, we are back working on the poor man's Hellcat, and this time, I promise you, we are finally ready to drop a refreshed engine into this engine bay. Can't be more excited about that because this is the last time that engine will be going in until it blows up, which I hope isn't anytime soon. Now, I don't believe I have a reputation for building things that blow up, so I'm hoping to continue that. Now, at some point, certainly a possibility with this strange contraption that we're actually building here, but I would like it to remain together for at least a little while to where I can have some fun with it. But first, before we actually get the engine in here, there's a few more of this stuff inside the engine bay that we need to take out. Now, the first thing we gotta do is we gotta take this coolant overflow bottle out. This is actually going to be far too close to the turbo right here. It's going to melt. We gotta get rid of this thing. I'm gonna build an auxiliary tank that goes somewhere else, potentially back here. I'm not entirely certain just yet, but this has got to go away. Along with that, all these heater lines back here, these heater lines are gonna go away because they're gonna be replaced with different ones, and we don't have the same style of mounting on the engine. So that's gotta go away. Our exhaust down there, we gotta take out both our exhaust pipes, get those out of the way, and then the engine will be ready to drop back in. There was duct tape on the bottom side of this coolant bottle. For what reason, I cannot fathom. Heater core lines are always a massive pain in the butt. They've been on there since the vehicle was built, which, what is this thing, 17 years old now? So they don't want to come off. All right, a key point here is that I am actually trying to save all these components because at some point, I'm probably just going to put this car back to stock after I've had my fun with it and sell it. So I want to try to maintain all the original stuff as best I can. Another thing that's unfortunate, but it does have to go, is all of our AC lines here. I'm removing AC on this vehicle, again, for the time being, for this particular project. I'll probably regret that once summer comes back around, but I need the space. I'm just out of space in this engine bay. So we got to remove these lines. In that last video, I mentioned that the engine we're using right here was replaced originally because the customer heard a ticking noise in it and he didn't want to tear it down to figure out what it was. He just wanted a new engine in it. I think I might have figured out what his issue was. And as you can see here, we got a broken stud in the exhaust right in the front there. Now, I hesitate to say that that was the actual cause of why this thing was replaced because I think the differences between a broken exhaust bolt and an internal engine tick are somewhat obvious, but again, I am a professional. This is what I do. I'm just surprised that the technician, whoever actually worked on this thing initially, didn't mention that or say that that's what it sounded. Honestly, I have no idea how the whole scenario worked out. I can say that if this engine was replaced because it had a broken exhaust stud, that's kind of a sad scenario, but all the better for me. I am surprised that I didn't notice that it had that broken stud in there when I was cleaning everything, but now I actually need to remove that broken stud before we can drop this thing into the Magnum. All right, we got that broken stud out of there, not a big deal. Now let's go ahead and get our turbo manifolds back on this engine because I want to try to drop it into the engine bay with the manifolds installed. Installing these things after the fact is always very difficult, and I will have to take them in and out a lot for fabrication purposes right now, but I just want to see if I can actually drop them in with them bolted to the vehicle first. Well, we're starting to get our first snow of the year. Can't say I'm particularly excited about it. It's going to be another cold winter. But moving on with our project here, one of the things you have to install on these before you put them in is this little spacer plate. Now, this spacer plate is really annoying because it likes to jump off of there every 3 seconds while you're actually trying to reinstall the engine. Then you have to crawl underneath, slip it back up onto the dowels. It's a huge pain in the butt. Now, a commenter had a really good idea. Recently, he said, hey, why don't you try just siliconing that thing in place? I was like, that's a pretty good idea. So I went ahead and did that. Unfortunately, the silicone is just not quite strong enough. Once there's enough tension on this thing, which there is when you're reinstalling it, it tends to pop off of those dowels. So I'm tired of playing games with this thing. There we go, that ought to solve it. This is not a great sign already to where this, I don't think, is going to go on. This is so much longer than it used to be. I'm not sure that this is going to go on. Let the engine come down. We'll see. We'll keep fighting with it here. Couple neat things I found so far. If you look here at the power steering line, I was able to reroute the stock line, kind of spin it in a circle here and screw it right back in. So that's pretty cool. Maybe not the most perfect routing whatsoever, but I think it'll be just fine. Actually, I figured I was gonna have to make a new hose, but that actually works out really well. So I think I'm gonna roll with that. And then on the turbo manifold on this passenger side, look at that placement. Man, for an absolute guess, I think that's pretty darn good. Very happy with that. Great starting point. It's an awful lot of work to make it look exactly like it did before, but looks can be deceiving. All right, as part of the law of unintended consequences, when you build stuff on the engine stand and it all works, but then you go to actually put it in the vehicle, and I got no way to actually put this bolt in. Now, of course, I could raise the engine up and actually get the bolt in there, but that really doesn't help me in the short term. I want this thing to actually be serviceable without raising the engine. So I need to think about this for a minute and how I'm going to make this work. Well, maybe not the most elegant of solutions, but I think I figured out a way to make this work without actually having to remove anything. And basically, you just got to pre-install the bolt onto this bracket. Then you can kind of come in at an angle. Let's see here. Ah. Oh no, I got a wedge now. Ah, shoot. Just like that, it works. Let's try this again. There we go. There, just like that. Now I can get it all bolted up. So, crisis averted. Now I know some of you were asking about the belt here, how it didn't appear to go around the water pump, but if you look down here, the crankshaft pulley itself has a separate 3-rib belt, and that's what actually runs the water pump. Oh my gosh, it looks so good. This is exactly what I was hoping for and exactly the kind of look that I was going for on this thing. Yes, I was completely delusional thinking that I was going to somehow put a hood on this thing. There's no chance of that happening. Don't care. Absolutely love it so far. Now, I don't want to be you know, confusing you guys and making you think that this is going to be running anytime soon. That is not the case. I had to fully assemble it inside the vehicle, so essentially now I can finish out my fabrication because I know where everything goes. One of the major things about fabrication is you want to actually have as much stuff in there that you know is going to be in there while you're fabricating, because inevitably if you make something and then have to bolt something on later on, it's going to be in the way. There's just no question about it. So I wanted to assemble it as much as I possibly could. I think it looks utterly amazing, and I can't wait until there's a turbo sticking out over there as well. This is fantastic. I want to thank you guys so much for sticking with this project. I know it's taking a little bit of time here, but as you can see, I think the results are going to be worth it. We'll see you guys next time on Reignited.